What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show, part of the All-City Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Manes, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, fresh off of another Commanders win. Team rolls to 7-2. I know he's feeling good on this Victory Monday. How are you, Legs?
I'm great, man. I'm glad you got to that first. Let's get that out of the way. You got that right. Well, look, it took me an entire week to recover from the fact that I wasn't in the stadium for the Hail Mary when I was actually at the game. And left before that happened. It took me literally an entire week to get myself back balanced. And I woke up Sunday morning, the excitement of game day. You know, my wife knows it's football Sunday for me. Immediately throw on my Commanders shirt. I wear something Commanders all day. And then watched us beat up a hapless New York team. A little closer than I wanted. And 7-2. Who would have thought we'd be 7-2 sitting here with what the last 30 years have looked like for our organization? So, yes, I'm a very happy man right now.
Did you see the comments, by the way? We did the show last Monday. Legler missed the Hail Mary. We talked about it on Monday's show because he left the arena. Did you see the people who told stories? Because we asked them, hey, what's a time you left the arena a little too soon? And some people had some all-timers, man. Some real all-timers in there about games that they would have missed. So if you haven't seen it, you got to check it out.
Real quick, along those lines, because this is a basketball-related one. I didn't mention this to you, and very few people know this. Do you remember the game? I wish I had the exact details in front of me, but it was epic. Tracy McGrady, playing for the Rockets, scored something like 13 points or 17 points, whatever it was, in like less than a minute or something. Do you remember that?
Remember it very well. I think it was it the Spurs? I think it was the Spurs.
It was against San Antonio.
Yeah.
Here's what's crazy. I was at the game as a fan. I just happened to be in Houston, went to the game, sat there. The game just Spurs had a sizable lead, and you think the game's over. It was like 2 minutes to go. I get up. I was with a couple people. We get up. We were sitting pretty good seats down by the court. We start walking up that first level of steps, and as we're walking, I'm still kind of glancing over my shoulder and like looking at what's going on. And you know, he hits a couple of buckets. Strings together. He has like 7 points in a flurry, and all of a sudden the game is like, okay, wow, this is not quite out of reach, but still looked like San Antonio is going to win it. I went to the top of the lower bowl, and I stood there in like the exit corridor, and I just stood right there with my hand on the railing, and I watched the rest of that absurd moment from Tracy McGrady. And I was in the building, or else that would have been another one that I would have missed if I had just followed my instincts and left like most people. But something just told me, I was like, wait a second, this is kind of crazy. And I wish maybe James at some point, I don't know if we have time, look up the exact details, because it's something like, I think it's something like 15 or 17 points in like a minute.
Yeah, it might have been 13. Some reason 13 sounds right. But James, look that up and send it to me because I'm curious what the exact number was. We'll get on today's show. We're going to get to 4 players that have Legler's attention, and I'll tell you those players right now: Anthony Davis, Buddy Hield, Gradey Dick, Payton Pritchard. All of those guys are having really surprising. I mean, it's early season. Some of these numbers are going to come down, but they're having crazy good starts to the season. So we're going to talk about them and what's working. But we're going to start by talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers. James just sent it to me now. 13 points in 33 seconds. That was the number.
Oh, man. It's even more ridiculous than I thought. So it was like half a minute. That's incredible, man.
Yeah, all time.
I saw that one, Adam. I did not leave.
Well, kind of.
Before that was over.
Kind of, you saw it. I mean, you said you still were you were in the building technically. Let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, though, because they are a great story, and I finally got to watch some of their games over the weekend. They're 7-0, new coach Kenny Atkinson, and it's the same team, more or less the exact same guys, but sometimes you bring in a new coach, You move some pieces around to, play a little bit of a different style, and they come out the gate 7-0. A 7-game win streak at any point in the season is impressive, but to start the season 7-0, really impressive. They have wins over the Lakers, the Knicks, the Bucks, the shorthanded Orlando Magic, and then some of the, the basement dwellers in the Eastern Conference. But nonetheless, second in offense, fifth in defense. Legs, how are they doing it?
All right. So first of all, we always need to, I think anytime you have like a winning streak or a team's playing this hot, right, you do have to just delve in a little bit. We're going to get to the numbers in a second with this team collectively and what they're doing on both ends. But let's just, so in case people have been paying attention to the Cavs, and I don't necessarily think they're a team that's like at the top of people's radar if you're outside of Cleveland, but it's time to start paying attention to them. And they've been good, right? They've been good since Donovan Mitchell got there. And last year, they won a first round series. I mean, that's a good year by all accounts. They've been good, but it's just not the sexy factor is not necessarily there with them. So people will not be paying attention. So who have they beaten? I guess is my point. So let's just go over the list. Toronto, Detroit, Washington to start the year. Okay.
Nice start.
That's all right, man. You got to beat the team you're supposed to beat. The thing is, they didn't just beat them. They pretty much smacked those teams around. Yep. So right out of the gate, they have three of the weaker teams in the league in front of them. They handle their business. Then they go to New York. They win a close game against the Knicks on the road. That's a quality win. Then they come home. They get the Lakers at home, blast them by 25. Then they get Orlando without Paolo Banchero, but they handle business again, put up 120 on them, get a win. And then this big one on Saturday where they fight tooth and nail on, an incredible night out of Damian Lillard and Giannis. And it takes Donovan Mitchell's inside of a second buzzer beater to win the game on a pull-up mid-range shot. So that's just a breakdown of who they played. What's been so impressive about them, Adam, is that this team is operating at a level offensively that I just didn't think possible when you consider the fact that, like you just said, they basically ran it back. And I like Kenny Atkinson as a coach, but I'm going to ask you this question. Did you love Kenny Atkinson as a coach? Like when they made this hire, were you saying to yourself, that's the guy that's going to unlock the potential of this team? Because I think we both felt like there's something there with Cleveland, but it just seemed like they needed to draw more out. And I didn't know that Kenny Atkinson was going to be the guy or not. And look, it's a small sample size. It's 7 games. I get it. But you can't deny what this team is doing offensively right now. And they hung their hat on the defensive end of the floor a year ago, I felt like, and they're still very good defensively. But to me, the story of this team is what's happening on the offensive end of the floor. An effective field goal percentage of almost 63% from the field through 7 games. It's absurd what they're doing on that end. And we'll get into some of these guys individually in a second. But I first just want to get your thoughts on that. Like when they made the hire, what did you think? Did you think Kenny Atkinson was going to be the guy? Like, oh, yes, that's the right hire. And did you ever expect them to have this kind of success offensively under him? It's basically the same roster.
Well, I mean, 7-0, no, the degree that they are. And I do think they're probably just a little bit hot right now. But I did like the hire, and I like Kenny Atkinson. And here's why. I look at assistant coaches and I go, okay, what's the pedigree? He comes from coaching under Mike Budenholzer, who I think is an offensive wizard. I think he really gets the modern NBA, gets spacing, right? And then he has a head coaching stint, and then he goes to Golden State, and he's on the bench for that system, which I think is one of the best. So I look at it and I go, he has been a part of 2 very important offensive systems, has worked under those coaches. And then lastly, and this is after the hiring. This was a great article I read from Fred Katz this week over at the Athletic. But they when they interviewed all their candidates, they had one goal in mind, and that was, how do we get the most out of Evan Mobley? Because they view, and I think they were correct in this, viewing him as the key to, is this team's going to be anything? It's going to be because Mobley becomes this very versatile 2-way player that can do a whole bunch of things. And he, according to the report by Fred Katz at The Athletic, had a plan for that very thing. He came in and said, this is the guy, this is what we did, spacing 2 bigs in Golden State, where we had Kevon Looney and Draymond Green. Can't shoot, but we figured out how to make the spacing work. He's made, obviously been part of teams that have spaced the court very well in Atlanta. So I look at that and I go, I think that might be the right guy. So I was kind of high on it. And I just think he's one of these modern, smart coaches that understands how to space in today's NBA. And you see it in the way they play.
To your point about Mobley, his numbers have gone up. This is his best scoring year as a pro. if you really look at all of his numbers across the board and over his 4 years, uh, you can make an argument is his best year or not. Honestly, there's been other years he rebounded the ball better, slightly less scoring. He's had higher years, higher percentages from the field in other years. So I don't know that definitively you pound the gavel and say, oh, this is Evan Mobley's breakout year, his big year. He's been pretty consistently good since the beginning. What we've been waiting to see is, does he have the next level, another gear where he can become great? That's what we've been waiting to see. And I don't know that I would say necessarily there, but here's what I will say. What's interesting about that, the numbers aren't anything dramatically different. His scoring is up 2 points a game in one less minute a game. So some people might think that's actually pretty significant, but they've been blowing teams out. So it's hard to know exactly maybe what his scoring average would be if he was playing 35 minutes a game. He's not. Here's what I'll say, Adam. Regardless of the numbers, when I watch the Cavaliers play, I notice Evan Mobley more. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's like an eye test. I'm finding myself looking at him and some of the things he's doing and having more of an impact. Even though the numbers aren't dramatically different, there's something about it visually when I'm watching the Cavs play. Evan Mobley's got his fingerprints all over the game a little bit more than he has in the past. So I think that was important to unlock it, but that certainly doesn't explain, across the board what this entire team is doing offensively. Do you know that they don't have a single player on their team averaging 30 minutes a game? Nobody. They're all in the 20s,
yeah, some good
including
blowouts.
Donovan Mitchell, who, as a result, his scoring average is about 24 points a game. He's had many years higher scoring average than that. So you would think if a team got out of the gate 7-0 like this and they have Donovan Mitchell on, maybe he's going off. Like he's averaging 32 a game and going crazy. He hasn't had to. Maybe in some close games, you'll start to see that scoring average creep up as they play more close games and he's on the court more. The fact that nobody is playing more than 29 minutes a game and they're doing this offensively is really incredible.
So when you mentioned Mobley, you're right about the per game stats. Here's what I think from when I watch them, when I think this is the big stylistic shift. They're putting the ball in Mobley's hands more as a fulcrum, not as a scorer. Mobley is sort of by nature a passive player. He seems to not like to shoot. He passes up shots when he's around the rim. He leads them in front court touches this year. Last year was Donovan Mitchell by a wide margin. And I think that changes twofold. One, Mobley has a unique skill set. As I mentioned, he's a little passive. He doesn't seem to be a guy that just likes to hunt for his own shot. So he almost is naturally looking to pass. So you make him the fulcrum, you give him reads. He's handling a bit more. He had a play the other day dribbling through, kind of split a defender behind his back through his legs. Like he's starting to try some things out off of the dribble. So he's the fulcrum more than ever. But I think also I've always been a guy that Donovan Mitchell is a unbelievable player, but he annoys me because I feel like he has the tendency to dribble the air out of the ball. And when the game gets tight, he goes hero mode. And I mean, he's coming off a game winner. It's bad timing for me to make this point, but he goes hero mode a little too early and too often for my liking. So giving the ball to Mobley, it's almost forcing Mitchell now to be off ball a little bit more to get open. So when he's touching the ball, he can maximize those opportunities. So that to me seems to be the big change. That and one other thing, they're shooting more freely, but the Mobley fulcrum part to me is the big change.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think diving into what is working for this team right now, and Kenny Atkinson, clearly he's had the ability to unlock this and max out who these guys are. What I like about them, if you go down a checklist of what you need to have in terms of individual personnel and what they do offensively, they kind of check everything, right? Darius Garland is a guy at the point who can play like a traditional point guard. Yeah. Very good pick and roll penetrator who can find people at the end of that. He also has the ability to go into scoring mode if he needs to. That's kind of like a typical modern NBA point guard. So they've got that at the lead guard. You obviously need a big time explosive guard / wing player that can go off at any time for any night, get a shot whenever he wants. That's Donovan Mitchell. They've got versatile bigs with Mobley and Allen. They've got two different guys that can protect the rim, clean the glass. They play well off of each other on the other end. They've got plenty of spot up 3-point shooting. Yeah. And And then they've got a 6-man, Karis LeVert. They've got the instant offense guy off the bench who's a combo guy too. So there's nothing you look at their team and say, oh, they need this or they need that. That's easy to do with probably 20 of the teams in this league. You look at it and you go, they don't have enough of this, or this. It feels like they kind of have enough of everything that they need in every category. And now it comes down to getting those pieces to fit together and play together to the highest level. And that's what they're doing right now. And I thought the game against Milwaukee on Saturday was a perfect example of this because they withstood, huge punches from the Bucks and big nights from their two best players. And those are games that Milwaukee, especially now, desperate to win a game. Those are games that they're supposed to win and should win and usually do win. And yet here was Cleveland doing everything they had to do to match them in the fourth quarter, and then eventually Donovan Mitchell make the biggest play of the game and hit the game winner right after it looked like Lillard had done that on the other end of the floor. That's their most impressive win of the year just because of the circumstances around it. A lot of these games they haven't been tested in the fourth quarter. These guys are sitting down the starters with 6 minutes to go in a lot of their games. This was different. This was grind it out till the end, make the plays at the end, and have your star player come through when you have to have it. That to me is even a bigger confidence builder going forward. But I just like all of the pieces. They check boxes. They've got balance across the board in the different areas that you need to be a complete offensive team.
One of the things, because I 100% agree that I think they check a lot of boxes. One of the things that allows you to check a lot of boxes is when you have not one, but two elite rim protectors. And that's what they have. So they have the ability to play both of them together, which is obviously one look that they throw out there, the two bigs. And I want to talk about spacing those two bigs because I think Kenny Atkinson is doing some interesting things there as well. But defensively, you play them both together, but you get 48 minutes with one of them on the court. So when you have some guys on the perimeter who can't guard as well, a Garland, who I think competes really hard, Donovan Mitchell, who I think struggles there, you have those guys that just make up for so much of it. And that allows you to play more shooters, to play more combos of guys. So to me, I'm with you. It's hard in today's NBA to check all boxes, but when you have such great defensive protectors inside, it allows for that.
And I think, look, this scoring binge they've been on, and again, I don't know how much nationally people are paying attention to what the Cavs have done here out of the gate. I think if you love the Eastern Conference, you're paying more attention to it. If you live in the Ohio area and this is your team, you know what's going on. Put it in perspective. Like, think about how much we've talked about how good Boston has looked offensively to start the year, right? Yeah. 123.7 points a game. There's only one other team in the league averaging 123. It's Cleveland.
Yeah.
Cleveland's the only team above 50% as a team, and they're way above it, 52% as a team. Boston only shoots 48. So you're looking at how great Boston has been, and we talk about it all the time. And I think part of that was like the way that they came out of the gate, like opening night, with just what they did to the Knicks was so eye-opening. The way that they just blasted them trip after trip and blew them out of the building. We were kind of like, wow, the Celtics are in midseason form right out of the gate. Well, here we are. We look up, we're a week and a half in, almost 2 weeks into the season, and the Cleveland Cavaliers have been the best offense in the NBA. If you really look at all of the metrics across the board, they've been sensational in what they've been doing on that end of the floor. So that's how good they've been. And it shows you to what extent Boston has drowned out a lot of the league, because you and I haven't even gotten to the Cleveland Cavaliers yet. I've been paying attention to what they're doing. I've seen probably half their games, including all of the game on Saturday, but yet nobody really has given them any attention or any love. That's going to be coming if they keep this up.
Yeah. Here's another thing I'm impressed with. I only caught two of their games. So I've seen Milwaukee and I saw the Knicks game. Those were the two I picked to kind of catch up on them. In that New York game, Donovan Mitchell was having a good game. He had it going. In the fourth quarter, Darius Garland caught fire. And I was very impressed that Mitchell kind of sensed the moment and was like, hey, he's got it. Like, let's play through him now. And I think that's kind of the key when you have multiple guys you can play through and allow someone to attack. But the spacing with them is always going to be interesting when you have those two bigs, because neither of them shoot the three well, Jarrett Allen or Evan Mobley. But what they're doing, Mobley is spending, as much as he's the fulcrum of the offense, it's weird because he goes between playing the high post, bringing the ball up, playing the dribble handoff and pick and roll game, to standing in the corner, which is the opposite of that. It's out of the way, and he's not a quarter three-point shooter. He hasn't even taken that many, but they always put him there. And I'm so interested what you think of this. I was talking to somebody, somebody in a front office in the league this week, and he said spacing is more important than shooting, or as important, I think is actually how he framed it. If you have good shooters, but they're improperly spaced, it's no different than having bad shooters properly spaced. And I go, Evan Mobley's not a shooter, but he does cut well from the corner, and he stands there, and guys just guard him there. And I go, it's interesting that he's not a threat to shoot, but he is a threat to cut and to rebound. And so you kind of have to always be paying attention to him. And right now, at least, it's working.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because you think, neither one of those guys being anything close to a pick and pop 4 or a pick and pop 5, and there's plenty of those in this league now. Every team's got at least one, if not more, of those kind of players. Consider neither one of those guys is that. You would think that the spacing would be all disjointed, and you'd have less driving gaps, and it'd be too crowded. And as a result, it would be easier to defend their perimeter players like Garland and Mitchell and LeVert. That's not really the case, because Mobley can start out all the way at the 3-point line in the corner and be fine there and still have an impact on the possession as the possession goes on. As a slasher, as an offensive rebounder, a weak side cutter, the ball can get reversed to him in the corner. He can then, out of that, get it out of there and get it into the hands of a guard for a dribble handoff. So he's functional, even though he's not necessarily a threat from out there. And that's been the biggest question for me. I thought his shooting stroke was good enough coming out that he could extend it. And the comparison I used was Chris Bosh. I thought they had some similarities to Bosh in his game. And I thought, look, Bosh did it. I mean, Bosh lived in Toronto on the short 15-foot ISO area where he'd turn face with his left hand. He'd kill people down there, or with his back to the basket, catching in a low post. And eventually he got to Miami. That wasn't going to work playing like that, because Dwayne Wade and LeBron are slashing and driving and cutting there. So he extended his range out, became a great 18-foot shooter, and became a serviceable 3-point shooter. I don't know. And that was later in Bosh's career. It's very early here for Mobley, and they're having a lot of success as a team. So the impetus isn't there really to push him to do that right now. I do wonder if that can be something that Mobley can add to his game, where he's taken 4 or 5 threes, a few years from now, and he's a big enough threat that now you've really opened some things up for him individually and for them collectively.
The other thing I have that I really like on them is first of all, Kenny Atkinson seems to be a coach that is allowing guys to play freely, because they shoot quick. Like, all of their guys seem to have a green light to shoot, and some of the shots are bad shots in my opinion, but there's something too. Right now they're leading the league in 3-point percentage. There's something too, when you have the green light, everything's a little easier. When you're a little more nervous about what's okay and what's not, you shoot a little bit worse. They all have the green light. But what I like is they have multiple guys that can attack closeouts and then swing the ball. So you typically be Donovan Mitchell trying to break guys down. You give the ball to someone else to initiate offense. And so when Mitchell catches it, drive into the paint, everyone sucks in, swing it around. It could be Dean Wade. It could be Darius Garland, Karis LeVert. It could be basically any of the guys in the rotation are competent enough that if you run out hard on them, quick fake, one dribble into the mid-range, and just read the court and swing it to the open guy. And when I watch them, the ball pops and the ball flies around, because it's constant one dribble, swing, one dribble, swing, and you're finding the open guy. And that part of this feels sustainable. I don't know if the shooting is, but the ball movement part of it, they just have so many guys that are capable of doing it.
They've got 8 guys shooting over 40% from the 3-point line.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane, and 7 of those guys are in the rotation.
That's hot. That's a little hot.
So it really is. It's obscene, really, what they're doing now. And I'm just kind of following over here in the chat, and you can see there's some skepticism over there about the Cavs.
That's fair. That's fair.
And that's fair. And I get it. And I'm not sitting here saying the Cavs are going to be the last team standing against Boston, or they're going to win the Eastern Conference. I'm not saying that yet. What I am saying is, when we do this show 4 times a week, and I'm watching games, constantly, when teams are playing this well, I don't care who it is, they deserve some shine.
100%.
And they deserve you to stand up and take notice of what's going on now. But here's the bottom line. You can say whatever you want about the Cavs. Maybe you don't think they're a legitimate threat, whatever. Okay. Do we need to break down what happened at the end of the year last year in the Eastern Conference with the injuries to these teams?
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen down the road. But the way Cleveland is playing, this is the best by far that the Cavaliers have played since Donovan Mitchell got there offensively. It's not even close. It's something to notice. Clearly, Kenny Atkinson has had an impact on that. And now we sit and we watch. And, we'll keep revisiting the Cavs, every week, 10 days, whatever it may be. We're going to be constantly looking at what's going on because, we know where Boston stacks up to the rest of the league. That's the barometer for the entire NBA right now, is close the gap with Boston. I get it. Look at what happened at the end of the year last year. If you recall, the Indiana Pacers played in the conference finals. Let's not forget that. It
Right.
wasn't the Bucks. It wasn't the Sixers. It wasn't the Knicks, for various reasons. So, I just want, my point being, yeah, you're right. Let's pump the brakes before we coronate this team and say, hey, yeah, they're going to have a parade. No one's saying that. But you need to notice what this team is doing right now, because it's really impressive the way that they're playing offensively. And they've been healthy, and no one's getting stressed with their minutes right now, which is a great thing. Every coach loves that, man. You play 7 games to have this kind of success, and everybody's in the 20s in minutes played. You can't ask for a better start for the Cavs.
Yeah. And the East second seed is wide open. I mean, Boston, we all know, is a juggernaut. I don't even mean second seed because Cavs are 7-0. I just mean Boston is going to be the team to beat. But the spot for okay, well, who's going to be the main challenger? That appears to be wide open because all the teams we thought, the Sixers, the Bucks, even there's turmoil there. Even the Knicks, the Cleveland just got a big win in the Garden last week. So I think that spot is wide open. And I'll give you this last stat, Legs. And this is where people will get annoyed because I don't think this is a real stat, but maybe it is. The last 4 teams to start 5-0 and outscore their opponent by at least 91 points all went on to the finals, and 2 of those teams won the championship. So my point is saying, now they had some cupcake games early on, so they won by big numbers, what we were saying, but just to put it into a little bit of perspective, you win your first 5 games by almost 100 points. That is unprecedented. So whatever you think, it's unprecedented to start 7-0 with blowout wins to the degree they have. And you know what? Maybe we're looking at this a week from now going, hey, there's might be something here.
I love that number. I mean, that's it. Well, and again, you wonder the validity to that, and you'd have to dive deeper into who those teams were that have done that. But what you're saying is the bottom line is this: what they are doing is historic by their standards and who they have. This is the best that they've been. And even when you look at the starts that teams have had historically, the beginning of the season, this is one of the best we've ever seen in terms of how well they've played offensively and their net rating, which means they're doing it on the other end of the floor, which we knew that was there all along. But sometimes when teams start, really doing more things offensively, they take their foot off the gas a little bit on the other end of the floor. I don't really see much of that with the Cavs. It's just come so easy. There haven't been enough tests where we really get a better feel for what this means. But again, you want to jump on teams when they're playing like this because, you don't know if you're going to get another chance at some point later in the season. So I'm glad that we, spent the first half of the show today talking about them because they deserve it. And Kenny Atkinson deserves it.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to talk about 4 players who have caught Legs' attention this season so far. And while we go to break, let us know in the chat, what players have your attention so far? Who has surprised you out of the gate a little bit? And you have a tip of the hat to them. But first, we're driven for the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. So ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. We hire at All City all the time, and I'm telling you, the moment we put out an ad saying we're looking to hire a producer, we're looking to hire this or that, we get 100 in an hour. We'll get 100 applications. It becomes impossible. So we switch to Indeed, and we can set some parameters so it filters out the people who qualify, and it helps us screen so we can quickly identify the cream of the crop. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/allcity. Just go to Indeed.com/allcity. It's in the description of this show, by the way. So if you are looking to hire, you can just click on that link. Use our link. It always helps us out. That's all. That is Indeed.com/allcity. One word, ALLCITY. Support our show by saying you heard about us about Indeed on this very podcast. Indeed.com/allcity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Also want to tell you about the Game Time app, arguably the best app I have on my entire phone. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Just over the weekend, we had a big event there. We had, where we take a bus from the DNVR bar here in Denver to the Denver Nuggets game. At the last minute, there were people looking. They wanted to ride the bus, but they didn't have tickets. We sold out of all the tickets we had. So you hop on Indeed in the last minute, and you can buy really great deals right before tip-off. In fact, you could ride all the way up to the door and then buy them right when you're getting ready to go into the gate, because you know at the last minute, people are going to start lowering those prices, and you're going to get the best deals. They also have my favorite feature, the all-in price feature. So you click on the button on the very first page, and it'll show you every price is your checkout price. There's no hidden fees, no taxes, no surprises at the last minute. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ALLNBA, all one word, ALLNBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code ALLNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute ticket, lowest prices, guaranteed. This is what we do. We go deep on all the teams in the NBA. We talk about interesting players, and we try to get into the details, and nobody in the biz is better at that than Tim Legler. So I asked you last night, who has your attention? Who has grabbed your attention so far this year? And you came up with a list. We're going to start with the first name on this list, which is Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is averaging 32 points per game, 12 rebounds. He's getting more shots than ever around the rim. Look at these stats right here. Kind of insane stats. Not really shooting the three a whole lot or very well, but other than that, he is dominating. So, Legs, why is he on your radar?
Because Anthony Davis is a guy throughout his career who's never had his talent questioned. He has had his durability and consistency questioned.
Yeah.
He answered, I thought, some of that to a great extent a year ago. In most games he'd ever played, for the most part, stayed healthy, had another great year by Anthony Davis's standards. Very impactful, Team USA. They just look completely different when he was on the floor there. And you kind of, it opened your eyes like, man, to this guy's real impact, because he's just so big and so talented, so skilled. Everything is so effortless for him. There's no great matchup for him individually or even from a scheme standpoint because of his mid-range shooting ability and his size and strength. So, what's going to happen now following that up? And there's a coaching change in LA, right? A lot of attention on that organization coming into the season. And he's coming off of that year, coming off of the summer he had. And I'm not saying I was doubting the guy, but to this point in the season, that's the MVP of the league. And I know that's
right.
I mean, seriously, it's silly to say that, obviously, I don't throw out MVP 6-7 games in. I think it's ridiculous, even though we get asked to say these kinds of things.
Right.
So I'm just saying that because that is a topic that comes up all the time. To this point, no one in this league has been better than Anthony Davis. And we're less than 2 weeks in. I get it. Let's see what happens. But he's been out there every night. He is clearly the driving force of this team. They're 4-2. They've been impressive to me. I think JJ Redick has done a nice job. It's obvious that they're responding to him. I've seen some things out of this team on both ends. I will attribute to JJ's impact.
Oh no, my Legs, real quick. Your mic just cut out there for a second. I don't know if something happened. Something got bumped.
I hit the cord. It's very loose, and sometimes I tap it. Is that better?
There you go. Missed the last part.
Okay, yeah. The cord is so loose, and sometimes if I move it at all, it pops out. Anyway, I'm just saying, the guy's 31 years old, and to have this kind of year, this deep into your career, where based on what happened a year ago, and now the first part of this year, it's like Anthony Davis, you feel like is changing the narrative a little bit on how you view him, because it has been so consistently dominant. And he's been available and durable and engaged and into it. In every game I've watched the Lakers play, and I've watched the Lakers a lot because I've been so interested, in the JJ impact. It's every night you're watching this guy, he looks like Anthony Davis at his best. And it used to be, hey, yeah, you'd get that a couple games back to back, and then there'd be one of those games where he'd get 14 points and didn't look that into it. And now I'm just telling you, it's every night I watch him. He is on a mission. He has a point to prove. He's playing with purpose. He's playing with intensity. It's clear he's showing up at the arena in the right frame of mind. And he has been the best player in the NBA through the first 2 weeks.
They're another team to me that doesn't have great three-point shooting. In fact, I think they take the fewest of any team in the NBA at this very moment, but they still space well. Again, spacing and shooting, not perfectly synonymous. They overlap quite a bit, but there's other ways to space. And when I watch them play, Anthony Davis seems to be operating in more space, especially around the rim. How do you think he is being utilized different? And what do you think JJ Redick's main emphasis has been with him?
I think the stuff that they've been running has given him more opportunities to be able to get quick guys sealed on his back in the post where he can power through them. And I also think he's gotten great opportunities to catch the ball at the elbow areas, which is his favorite spot on the floor, and have better driving lanes. He's always going to be able to shoot over the top of anybody in any situation. That's what's been so difficult about him, to find someone to guard him. Because even LeBron, at times, if he gets streaky with his perimeter shooting, you can load up the lane on his drives because you can see so clearly where it's coming from. It's coming from basically half court. And you could do a better job of trying to force him to pass or make very tough finishes. Anthony Davis, anywhere he catches the ball on the floor, at the end of the day, if he wants to, with that shooting stroke, he just go over the top of anybody in front of him anytime he wants to. I think the opportunities to get to the rim have been better. It's more consistent in his approach to getting to the rim. And look, the numbers back it up. Adam, he's averaging 11 and a half free throws a game. And for his career, he averages 7. He averaged a little over 6 last year. You're talking about a guy at 31 years old, doubling up almost his free throw attempts from a year before. That just doesn't happen to guys at this stage of their career. If anything, the opposite becomes true. They get to the line less and less as they get into their 30s.
Right.
And they rely on the jump shot more. It's harder to find the quickness and the burst and the legs and the stamina to be able to do that. But I've seen a total purpose with him in beating you up and dominating you in areas of the court where it's his advantage because of the physical presence he represents. And that means not settling as much. You mentioned the 3-point numbers are down, free throw attempts through the roof, even by any standard he has set in his career. You're talking 30-40% increase over his career average from the foul line in terms of attempts. That's a massive jump at this stage of a player's career. So that, to me, has been the biggest impact for Anthony Davis. And to what extent JJ is directly responsible, I'm going to find out this Friday because I'm calling the Sixers-Lakers game. And I'm going to get a chance to sit down with JJ when I'm out in LA, and I'm going to be talking about a lot of this stuff with him, and a lot of it will be obviously come out on the broadcast because I want to know his exact direct impact on what he saw and what he's implemented to make Anthony Davis have this kind of a year.
He's in great shape too. And, and I think that's part of it is that when you watch him play 36 minutes a night, but I think a lot of this is just how hard can you go? I mean, he's still the same defensive monster he's been. I mean, among the best defenders in all of the NBA, among the most versatile defenders. And then to be able to put up this volume. And I like a note that they had, somebody had in the comment about pushing the ball screens up higher, initiating your offense a little bit higher. This is a thing I think a lot of smart teams are doing, especially when you have athletes like Anthony Davis, LeBron James. It's easier to get downhill. So if a defense is going to press up and you can turn the corner on it, now you're operating with all that space and putting even more pressure on the paint. They're doing that. And I think he was a great call out for a guy with your attention. Another guy, Buddy Hield. He's taking more 3-point field goal attempts than Steph right now, and he's shooting 52% on them. Career high in points per game. Taking more corner threes than ever. So this guy's obviously off to an incredibly insane hot start. So I kind of get why he made your list, why he has your attention.
Yeah, because look, I just talked about Anthony Davis, I think to this point being the best player in the league. I'll put Buddy Hield in a different category. Talk about all the players in the league that change teams. So new guys, new places, new uniforms. Who's had a bigger impact than Buddy Hield? Because think about it. Steph Curry's missed 3 games. Steph Curry's averaging 18 points a game. This team's 5-1 out of the gate. And Steph's missed half those games. Jonathan Kuminga has taken a step back offensively. So if I told you going into the year, well, Warriors added a few guys. Curry's going to miss half the games, and when he has played, hasn't gone crazy on anybody. Kuminga actually has regressed offensively. Oh, and by the way, the Warriors are 5-1. You'd say, well, and Klay Thompson's gone too. How's that possible? Well, this is how it's possible. Now, Wiggins has been very good. Wiggins has bounced back big way. So I'm going to give him, make sure he gets plenty of credit. But the biggest reason is Buddy Hield. And you should put those numbers up. Those are insane numbers. But what it doesn't say up there is he's doing that in 25 minutes. The guy's averaging 22 points a game in 25 minutes a game.
That's crazy.
And 5 made 3-pointers a game. 51 from the field, 51 from the 3. He has been the biggest impact player probably in the league that changed teams. And you look, I told you, and I told you repeatedly before we started the show for the season, and multiple times I think since we've had shows, I felt something good about the Warriors. It felt fresh to me. It felt like there was some sort of a reset button. The energy, what was going on between their ears, what they were saying, everything felt positive about going in. Now, I had no idea Curry was going to get hurt, that Curry was going to miss time and not really play great to this point. If you had told me that, I said, well, then that's going to be a problem. They need Curry to be Curry. Well, not when Buddy Hield's playing like this. So you have to give a guy credit that's had this kind of a start, man. And his release is so quick. And the way Kerr wants to play, Buddy Hield's got to be thinking he must have died and gone to basketball heaven
100%.
In the situation he has found himself in. It's incredible that you get this. And again, 31 years old. This guy's been around for a long time. You don't usually find a guy at 31, Adam, having by far the best year of his career in fewer minutes. That's what's nuts. And that's the extent to which this guy's been on fire to start the year. Let's see, how long he can keep this up and what his numbers end up being. They're going to level out at some point. He'll go through some sort of a slump and level them out. But my goodness, you can't ask for a better start out of a guy in a new place than Buddy Hield and the impact he's had on them being 5-1.
So they have had a somewhat of an easy schedule relative to other teams, and they have Washington tonight on the road, but they have Washington tonight, which you should win that game, if you're playing at this level. But after that, listen to the schedule, Legs. At Boston, at Cleveland, at Oklahoma City, and then you come home for Dallas, Memphis, and the Clippers. That's 6 straight tough games, some on the road, some at home. So I look at that and I go, I think the Warriors have looked very impressive. They do have fresh life. Everybody seems energized. And to your point, they haven't had Steph Curry. I'm high on him, but I want to wait for that 6-game stretch to see what they go. Because if you were to ask me what they go on that stretch, I would say 2-4, 3-3 maybe. So that's the test.
Well, that's fair. And that's, like I said, man, you always have to take schedule into context with any player and any team and what they're doing. And sometimes the opposite way. If a team's really struggling, you got to go look at who they're playing sometimes and go, okay, that explains it, because there's going to be a softening of the schedule and it's going to level out. So you're right. That's fair. But here's what's so important about what Buddy Hield has done. Because of that schedule, this is why it's critical to beat the teams you're supposed to beat earlier, to win games, maybe a couple that you weren't supposed to if Curry doesn't play, because it sets you up for that. Let's say you do go 2-4. In that, well, you're still sitting at 7-5. You're still in a pretty good place, gotten through that tough patch, and now maybe get some more normalcy in your schedule. I like the way they're playing. I like the positivity coming out of there. Buddy Hield has been sensational. There's no other word for it in the way that he has embraced this opportunity, this team, and then the production to follow it, man. He has absolutely caught my eye. And also, I've just been amazed how quickly, and I know he's always had one of the quickest releases in the league, but it's amazing when he's playing on a team that like you enjoy watching, because I've always liked watching the Warriors. Yeah. And now it seems like it's even quicker, his release, because of what he's doing right now, because he doesn't need any time. And the system they're running, a number of threes they want to take, Kerr is encouraging everybody on the roster, shoot it whenever you want to, as much daylight as you have, let it fly. Nobody's benefiting more from a coaching philosophy in the league right now than Buddy Hield. And he has taken advantage of it, man. And that guy's got to be smiling as soon as he wakes up in the morning, man. He's got to have a smile on his face as he goes down to the practice facility.
Perhaps the most surprising name on the list of guys you said that caught your attention, Gradey Dick, 21 points per game. And he's not even shooting the 3 that well, only 37% from 3. But what he's doing is scoring from 3 levels, and he's making shots in tight windows. This stat came courtesy of Samson Folk. He's taking more guarded field goal field goal attempts than 99% of players, and yet somehow his true shooting percentage is insane. So he's taking tough shots, and he's making them at a high rate. What has impressed you about him?
47% from the field, despite what you just said. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say I've watched, all 7 Raptors games start to finish. I've watched them play. And then I've specifically, because I saw the start that he had, I've specifically gone and done extra film work on just watching Gradey Dick. I didn't think Gradey Dick coming out or after last year was going to ever average 20 points a game in the NBA. I didn't think that, and I'm not saying he's going to this year, but he is right now. He's averaging 21. The opportunities are there. That's an offensively challenged team. So he's getting a lot of opportunity. He's averaging 32 minutes a game. You mentioned the shooting splits. I like, when I watch Gradey Dick, this guy oozes confidence that is rare, even by NBA standards. There is nothing. Every trip up the floor, Gradey Dick thinks about getting his hands on the ball and doing something with it. He is playing full speed all the time. He's got tremendous enthusiasm for what he's doing. As a result, the way that they react to him in Toronto is different than just about anybody else on their roster, because he's flying around, making stuff happen. Clearly just loves to play basketball. And now the results are happening. They're happening pretty quickly. I mean, the guy's only 20 years old. He's in his second year, and he's at 21 points a game right now. And I know they're not very good. I get that. And they're going to be, a team that's going to be lottery bound most likely. But Gradey Dick's caught my eye because of, I just said AD might be the best player in the league to this point. It's a year that he's had. Buddy Hield, best player in a new place, an impact, changing teams. Well, Gradey Dick might be the most improved player in the NBA that I've seen from year 1 to year 2. What he's doing right now, I don't think was ever possible, but certainly not for 3 or 4 years down the road. Maybe 27, 28, when he gets fully, experienced and mature and slows down and gets more relaxed. It's happening in year 2 for him, man. And I just wanted to point that out. He's been really impressive with his confidence. He's got great size, and he's got a relentless attacking mindset. So he's always coming at you. And when you're feeling confident and the ball's going in, man, you're going to put up impressive numbers when you have that kind of mindset.
I think there's 2 things that are really valuable in today's NBA, maybe more than they have in the last 20 years. And one of them is basketball IQ. I don't know about him there just yet. I mean, he's a young player still figuring things out. But the second one is conditioning and your ability to just constantly move. And to me, that's the thing that stands out when I watch him, is he's moving a lot. When he catches the ball, he goes quickly. He just has a lot of energy, and he's not tired. So as the ball's popping and things are moving around, he can be in attack mode over and over again. And you look at Steph Curry. That's what makes him so special, is he can run around the court, 3 laps around the half court, catch the ball, and have the conditioning to be able to square up and shoot it no problem. And I look at Gradey Dick and I go, that's part of what stands out to me, is he just is constantly moving, and it makes him really, really hard to guard. But let me ask you about the shooting form, because he kind of has a weird slingshot. Like, he brings it back and shoots it, and it's not typical, but it works for him. What do you make of that form?
Yeah, it's not something I would teach. And you come across guys sometimes that have something that's a little bit quirky or different than what you think and I consider to be perfect shooting mechanics, which is what I try to teach. Because, maybe not everybody can reach like what you think is perfect shooting mechanics, but if you at least are attempting that, you can end up in a really good place that's close. His is unorthodox. It's very high above his head, like straight up above his head, where mine, and a lot of great shooters would come off sort of the corner of your right or your strong hand eyebrow, right? It come right from here. His comes straight up above his head, full extension before he releases it. But here's the thing. There are guys that practice it however they shoot it. The repetition is so high that they can overcome even slight flaws in their mechanics. I don't think it's a big deal. It's not like, this is something when I saw Lonzo Ball coming out and I'm like, that won't work in the NBA. I know that. And he's done a lot of work to get it closer to what traditional shooters look like. So I don't think there's anything like that with Gradey Dick where you go, that's a shame. He's never going to overcome that.
Just a little.
There's a hitch in his shooting, and guess what? He's never going to be more than a 41% field goal shooter. I don't feel that way about Gradey Dick, and I think the confidence and the repetition he's put in can overcome it.
The last guy we have to talk about, Payton Pritchard. I think he's on a lot of people's radars this year. Why? Because 4 threes a night made. That is fifth best in the entire NBA, and he's doing it off the bench. The guy is shooting unbelievable. He has a green light. He's always been a fun player to watch and like a fan favorite in Boston because he has that quickness off the dribble. He kind of has a nice like street ball game to him off the bounce, but he's averaging almost 16 points a game and he's shooting 44% from three. So breakout year for Payton Pritchard. What is it about him?
Yeah, well, first of all, a guy being in the same situation this long, usually by your fifth year and you've had the kind of role Payton Pritchard has had, guess what, man? A lot of times that sort of comes to an end with a franchise. You see that all the time because it's like, yeah, it gets a little bit stale. They try to upgrade that spot because you haven't cracked through to that level yet. He's always been in the rotation. He played 22 minutes a game last year. So I'm not saying the guy's been riding the pine, but that was the end of his fourth year when the season ended a year ago. And you think Boston's just going to run it back. Well, sometimes, you look in other places. Well, here's Payton Pritchard in year 5 coming off a championship team.
Right.
And he's having the best year by far of his career. Now, part of it, I think, Adam, is he has embraced more being a guy that's really comfortable with catch and shoot threes or threes off the dribble. He's so quick. And I saw them play last year against Phoenix. And it's the first time I'd seen Payton Pritchard in person. And I was calling the game for radio, and I was blown away at how quick this guy's feet are moving on both ends. And it's just different than everybody else on the floor. So as a result, he wants to get in there and wreak havoc. Like little quick guys, that's what they want to do, man. They want to constantly be in the lane. And I think there was going to be limitations offensively for his opportunities playing that style. He's shooting more threes. 11 field goals a night, 9 of those are threes. So he's just fully wrapped his head around the fact, on this team, I can shoot it whenever I want. They're never going to question my shot selection. This is a team that's going to take between 40 and 50 almost every night. And his minutes are up significantly. His shot attempts are up. He's embracing now the ability to just let it fly. And he's in a really good place again mentally. It's amazing what confidence can do. You don't typically see when guys have been in the same place coming off the bench for 5 years in a row with the same organization. You typically don't see this kind of an uptick from year 4 to year 5. It doesn't happen. You're talking about going from 9.5 to almost 16 points a game. He's outscoring Drew Holiday right now on this team. He's their 4th leading scorer. And here's why it's important, Adam. Last thing on this. I said from the beginning, no one's taken anything away from what Boston did a year ago. They're the best team in the league by far. But I don't think they got the best this league had to offer either. Being fair about it, they didn't. Yeah. The Eastern Conference was decimated at the end of the year, and Dallas was a very good team. But Dallas, I don't think, was a championship caliber team a year ago, as relative to Boston. So there's more there for this league to throw at them, and that means you have to do something also to gain some extra ground. And if you're going to stay pat with the same roster, where's that going to come from? Payton Pritchard has given you really a different offensive player than you had on your roster a year ago. And that's something that Boston might need this time around to get through and repeat.
That number you threw out about his twos is absolutely wild. He's taking 1.7 a game, but that doesn't even do it right. He's played 195 minutes, legs. He's taken 12 twos.
Wow.
that is a wild
listen, man. That's a guy after my heart. I'll tell you that. I mean, I'm not complaining about it, man. If you can live in that space, more power to you.
You're born 20 years too soon, man. I know a young Tim Legler would love to be taking 95% of his shots from three right now.
There's no, absolutely no question about it.
Yeah. He's so quick though, but to your point, he uses his quickness to get to that step back. And he is one of the guys that I've been able to sit close, covering the Nuggets up close, sit close and watch him really close. When you sit courtside and see guys, the speed really stands out. And he's one of those guys that puts on like a boxer, 3 crossovers, and you don't even see him because they were so fast. It's just a blur. He's unbelievably quick, and he's really learned how to leverage that into that step back. All right, what do we have? We have a couple super chats here. James, what do we got? Destroyer of Councils says, did you expect the Grizzlies' second unit to have as much pop as they do? Scottie Pippen Jr. and Jay Huff are nice, and Gigi Jackson should be back. Well, first of all, great call. Our guys, by the way, we could take a little victory lap. All of our guys are playing well. Tari Eason, Ben Shepherd's been very impressive. Dyson Daniels. But Scottie Pippen Jr. was nowhere on my radar, and now I love the dude. So, yes, legs saw it coming.
Yeah, I saw something. Well, first of all, I saw opportunity there
Yeah.
for minutes. That's the
Yeah.
first thing. And now you say, who's going to fill it? And then just watching him in Vegas, watching him in the preseason, I thought he was going to carve out a niche for himself. He's been very, very good, man. I think he's a really smart player.
Yep.
And you find time for guys like that. He can guard on the ball. He's probably even better offensively to this point in the season than I thought he would be, even if he did have a role in the rotation. I mean, I thought, you average like 6-7 points a game as a backup guard to their guards. That's a pretty good, important role on a good team, which I think Memphis can be. He's better than that. And he's getting more opportunities on given nights. So, I kind of, sometimes you hit him, sometimes you miss him, man. Don't get me wrong. Like it took me like 3 years on Kuminga before I got it somewhat right last year. And now I don't even know if I'm right again. But like Scottie Pippen Jr., he's one of the ones you hit, man. So every now and then you pat yourself on the back because you saw something in somebody and they actually get off to the kind of start that you expected.
And Jay Huff's an interesting one because Jay Huff is a guy, and maybe you can speak to this, Legs. Your reputation, it gets established quick, and it's so hard to come out from. Like Isaiah Hartenstein, for example, bounced around the league for a long time and didn't get a ton of opportunity because it's like, well, this guy's not a player, but he was. It just needed someone to give him opportunity, and now he's valued extremely highly. Jay Huff is one of those guys that just has bounced around. A lot of teams were like, I think this guy has talent, but how do you get him on the court? Well, you get him on the court because everybody in Memphis got injured, and now he's out there, and what do you know? He can actually play. So he's making his threes. He's long. Jay Huff got an opportunity, and that's kind of cool to see. I like stories like Jay Huff. Bounced around for a while, find a spot, now he's breaking out.
Oh, I'm one of those stories, man. I bounce around a bunch of 10 days, and I'm not saying I necessarily deserve to be there longer, but I never really got the opportunity to find out. Then I go to Dallas, and I have a couple years in Dallas, and I thought was really important player in their rotation. Make a coaching change. They have a new draft, and they're just like, nope, I want my guy that I drafted to succeed in those minutes. So that's what I ran into. So you know what I did? I just left Dallas and went to Washington and led the league in 3-point shooting and won the 3-point shootout that year. But because by that time I'd had a couple years under my belt
established
that I knew I could play. I'm like, okay, I proved it to myself. I'm good. Now all I need is a coach that lets me play through mistakes and play through missed shots and play through a turnover and play through if I get beat on defense one time and let me stay out there because of my strengths. And that's what I found in Jimmy Lynam in Washington, and it kind of unlocked a lot of things for me. So, and there's a lot of guys that go through the same thing because there's only 450 spots, man. There's a lot more than 450 players worthy of playing in the NBA. And sometimes it just takes the right circumstances and you find your niche, and then it's up to you to then take advantage of it and make sure you stay in the league for the rest of your career.
Good super chat there. All right, what else we got, James? We got another one. Tim Jenkins Guitar says, I predicted Nuggets in a play-in tournament before the start of the season. Good take or bad take now? What do you say, Legs?
Well, I mean, I think it's early for that. I will say this. We talked about it before the season. Remember I said to you, Adam, the one thing I said was, I can go down X number of teams in the Western Conference that we think are at sort of the top level and make a case for every team and why they got better.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to have a really difficult time doing that for the Nuggets. That's exactly what I said to you before we started the year. I think some of that has played out. It's early. Would I be shocked? I wouldn't be shocked. I still think they're going to find a way to get into the top 6. But I would not be shocked just because we still don't know how good Phoenix can be, I think. Dallas, I think, is better than they were a year ago. The Warriors have surprised everybody. I think the Lakers, Memphis, we don't know what their best is. There's a lot. Sacramento, there's a lot of teams, man. It's not crazy to list 6 teams that might be better than Denver, where they're in the play-in, right? So I'm not going to say that's a crazy take. I still think because of the Jokic factor that they find a way to get into the top 6, and some of these teams are going to deal with injuries along the way and everything else. So it remains to be seen. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't feeling super high on the Nuggets going into the year.
Well, one thing that's working for them, Nikola Jokic's 3-point shot. He's come out of the gate on fire. So that's one area they might have improved. We'll see if that holds. What else? We got one more, James. Jay Money says, Dunn looks to be the most impactful rookie. Thoughts? I haven't seen all, I know in Washington, there's some guys around that I haven't been able to really watch, but I'll tell you what, I love Ryan Dunn. I love watching him play. I think he's incredible.
Yeah, look, they got a guy that, first of all, it's exactly what they needed.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity for him because of his defensive prowess. Really, that's why the guy got drafted. Because you look at a guy that, hey, man, this guy's got guard 3-4 positions on the floor at a really high level. He's got that kind of profile to him. No one knew the shooting was going to be this impactful. He's making NBA three-point shots playing off of that level of offensive talent where most of his shots are going to be basically uncontested spot-up shots. He's got a perfect opportunity to grab a role on a really good team. Here's the thing about guys like that too, man. Who knows? This team has a great regular season and they're really high profile going into the postseason. It's amazing how much higher your profile can jump, even with less numbers, if you do it in a playoff setting. So he's positioned himself to be part of this rotation all season long. Couldn't agree more. Love Ryan Dunn. Super excited about him when the season began. He has not disappointed.
Not disappointed at all. Neither did this show. We're off to a hot start. Monday down. The games weren't great yesterday, so I'm glad we got to step back and just talk about the Cavs for a little bit. But tonight, there's a full slate of NBA games. I'm definitely going to get one or two good ones out of that, and that'll be what we talk about tomorrow. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us in the chat today. And if you're new to the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're getting all kinds of other content, shorts and videos and breakdowns and all kinds of other stuff. If you didn't see my Nikola Jokic video from last week, really cool video about how he shoots shots off of his right foot. Nobody else in the NBA shoots shots off his right foot to the degree that Jokic does. Really cool breakdown on that. We're going to be bringing you more and more of that kind of stuff. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
Silly like the mayor.